Checks and balances, impeachment. By the end of this video, you will be able to define impeachment, identify the responsibilities of different branches of government with regard to impeachment, and list examples of people who have been impeached. Impeachment. The Constitution gives the legislative branch the power to impeach or try government officials. Impeachment specifically refers to the process of trying the official. If an official is convicted by a 2/3 majority during the impeachment trial, the punishment is removal from office. An official can be impeached and not be removed from office. In that case, the official wasn't convicted by a 2/3 majority. We are going to talk about how impeachment works when the person under consideration is the president or the vice president. But it's also possible for other government officials, for example, a judge, to be impeached. How it works. The House of Representatives is where an impeachment proceeding begins. An inquiry or investigation of impeachment begins, usually in the Judiciary Committee of the House of Representatives. The Judiciary Committee investigates and votes on the inquiry, and in this investigation they decide and state whether or not enough evidence exists for the impeachment trial to take place. The entire House of Representatives then votes to approve an impeachment hearing continuing by the Judiciary Committee. If the House doesn't agree to this, then the impeachment proceeding dies. After this, the Judiciary Committee holds hearings to determine the specific charges. This is where they figure out exactly what crimes or misdemeanors, that's the language the Constitution uses, the official has committed that warrant or are cause for him being impeached. The Judiciary Committee then votes on the bills of impeachment, and that's where they announce and determine the specific articles or charges against the official. The House votes by simple majority whether, whether or not to send the impeachment trial to the Senate. Once the case reaches the Senate, a trial occurs. The House Judiciary Committee will act like the prosecutor. They'll present the case against the official. The Senate acts like the jury. They hear the evidence, and they're the ones who are going to vote. The Chief Justice of the Supreme Court presides over the trial. The Senate will vote on each charge or article of impeachment, and it's not enough at this point in the impeachment process for it to be a majority vote. There has to be a 2/3 vote required to convict and remove the official from office. Since 1789, the House has voted to impeach 16 officials. Only 7 officials were actually convicted by the Senate. Most impeachment resolutions never make it out of the House Judiciary Committee. 4 presidents have been the subject of serious impeachment proceedings. None has been convicted or removed from office. Who was impeached? President Andrew Johnson was impeached in 1868 for violating an act of Congress, but when the trial got to the Senate, he was acquitted or found not guilty by the margin of 1 vote. That means that a majority of the people in the Senate believed that Andrew Johnson had committed the act that he was being impeached for, but they couldn't reach a 2/3 majority, and the difference in that was a single vote. President Bill Clinton was impeached in 1999, but both of the articles of impeachment that he was tried for in the Senate failed to get a majority vote. Who was almost impeached? Impeachment proceedings were considered for President John Tyler in 1843, but the House declined to continue the process. So John Tyler was never charged with the articles of impeachment, and there was never a trial held for him. Maybe the most famous president getting into trouble is Richard Nixon relative to the Watergate scandal in the early 1970s. And the House was preparing to vote on specific impeachment articles for President Nixon in 1974. but the president decided to resign and leave office before that vote occurred in the House. Thus, there was no point in continuing in the impeachment proceedings because the punishment for that was going to be that President Nixon had to leave office, and since he'd already done that voluntarily, there was no point in the impeachment going forward. For more information, check out the news article, Impeachment, the Process and History, in the New York Times. That's the basis of the notes that you've had today. Thanks for listening.